Do you think the ocean is a place with no rules? Sounds like the perfect vacation. But no, in reality, it's even more complicated than land. You step onto a ship thinking it's all about relaxing, sipping coconut water, living your best life. But legally, you just teleported into another country without a visa. Sounds fine? Until you realize weddings on board may not be valid casinos, only open once you're far enough from shore. Picking something up at sea can break international law and some crimes. No one even knows who has jurisdiction. One small mistake and your vacation can turn into a legal nightmare. And here are 31 of the craziest maritime laws you should know. Story 1. Weddings at sea, and the plot twist: not legally married. A couple decides to get married on a cruise, going full romance mode, ocean breeze, sunset, soft music. Everything looks like a Hollywood trailer. The captain steps up, reads the vows. Guests tear up cameras, capture every angle for a month of TikTok content. The problem is, that captain doesn't actually have the legal authority to marry them. And they only find out after returning to land when they file paperwork and get told congratulations, but you're still single. Turns out, unless the captain is also a judge, a licensed officiant, or authorized under specific jurisdictions, the entire ceremony is basically a well-organized performance. Meaning you can have wedding photos, wedding videos, a just married caption, but legally, you're still single. The love is real, the paperwork is not. And if you think that's weird, that's just the beginning. Story 2. You're in another country. Without realizing it, you're standing in the middle of the ocean, nothing but water and sky around you, thinking, okay, this must be neutral territory, like the world's free mode. Sounds reasonable. But in reality, not even close. The moment you step onto a ship, you are on the territory of the country whose flag that ship flies. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of the Pacific or thousands of miles from land. The flag decides the law. And here's the interesting part: those laws can be completely different from what you're used to. Something you think is normal might be illegal there. So you don't need to travel far, no border crossing, no passport stamp. Just step onto a ship and you've already changed countries. You didn't move, but the rules did. And if you think that's strange, it leads to even crazier situations. Story 3. The casino switches on at sea, like a light switch. You're on a cruise, everything is chill buffet, open pool packed, people sunbathing like it's a travel commercial. The vibe is family friendly, no drama. You think, okay, this trip is just pure relaxation. Then suddenly, lights turn on, slot machines start ringing, blackjack tables open, and the entire ship turns into a mini Las Vegas. No announcement, no countdown, just boom. Casino mode activated. The reason: the ship just left territorial waters. Out in international waters, gambling laws change. Things that are illegal on land suddenly become completely legal. Same ship, same day. Move a few kilometers, and the rules change. You just went from family cruise to casino night without changing your ticket. Vegas, but mobile. But don't let the lights fool you, because not everything at sea is legal. Story 4. Picking something up at sea, and the shock of not yours. You're standing on the deck looking out at the ocean when you spot something floating. It looks like free loot survival game style. First to grab it owns it. You think, nice free stuff in the middle of the ocean. You pick it up, and that's when things take a turn. Turns out, if it's debris from a spacecraft or equipment from a country like NASA, it still belongs to the launching nation no matter where it lands. Yes, even in the middle of the ocean. So your harmless pickup could actually be a violation of international law. You didn't steal, you didn't break anything, you just picked it up. But the law doesn't care what you thought, it cares who owns it. Just because you found it doesn't mean it's yours. And if you think at least fish in the ocean are free, wait until the next story. Story 5. Whales belong to the king, and you just got charged. You're out at sea, casually fishing, and suddenly, you catch a massive whale. A life-changing moment. The kind that should land you headlines and a Netflix deal on the spot. But before you celebrate, the law shows up. In the UK, there's a law dating back to the 14th century stating that whales and sturgeons, known as royal fish, belong to the crown. And here's the twist. That law was never fully removed. Meaning, technically, if you catch a whale near UK waters, you're not lucky. You just interacted with royal property. You didn't mean to. You didn't know. But the law doesn't care what you knew, it cares what you did. You just stole from the king. And if you think maritime law is just a little quirky, it gets way more confusing than this. Story 6. Burial at sea and the paperwork that comes with it. You'd think a burial at sea is simple, a few final words, a solemn moment, and then the ocean takes over. Calm, emotional, almost cinematic. But in reality, it's not simple at all. The law is extremely specific, the body must be properly prepared, weighted to sink quickly, released a minimum distance from shore at a certain depth, and most importantly, you must record the exact coordinates and report it to authorities. Yes, you're not just saying goodbye, you're filing a technical report. Do it wrong. What you thought was a respectful farewell could be considered a legal violation. You didn't mean anything bad, but the law doesn't care about your intentions. Even death comes with paperwork, and if you think the ocean is a place to escape bureaucracy, it might love paperwork more than an office does. Story 7. Ships had to carry mail, and you just became a delivery driver. You think ships only carry containers, cars, or massive cargo. Hard mode logistics. Makes sense. But go back in time a bit. Ships had a surprising side quest carrying mail. Yes, back when the internet was still science fiction, ships were part of the global communication system. If postal authorities requested it, ships were required to take mail and deliver it. No, sorry, I'm busy. The twist: if you refused or delayed it, you could be fined. Not a gentle warning, a real penalty. So you could be on a major mission chasing profit, exploring, or just minding your own business, and still have to stop and deliver letters. You didn't apply, you didn't sign up, but you still got the job. You're a delivery driver, whether you like it or not. And if you think that's weird, some people took things much further. Story 8. Starting your own country at sea. And it's not a joke. One day a man looked out at the ocean and thought, what if I just start my own country? Sounds like a 2 a.m. idea. Except he actually did it. He took over an abandoned sea fort off the coast of England, raised a flag, wrote a constitution, gave himself a title, and called it Sealand. No big population, no official spot on most maps, but somehow, it has all the vibes of a tiny nation. And here's the twist: Sealand still exists today. Not widely recognized, but not exactly gone either. A legal gray zone where reality and law start to blur. It's like leaving Wi-Fi range. Except this time it's the range of law itself. If you go far enough, you can start making your own rules. But the problem is, the ocean doesn't always play by clear rules. Story 9. In the middle of the ocean. Who handles the crime? A crime happens at sea. No land, no nearby police. Just one ship and a lot of questions. Sounds like the start of a detective movie. But this is a real legal problem. When something happens out there, things get complicated. Fast. Which country has authority? The victim's nationality, the suspects, or the flag the ship is flying? And what if that country doesn't want to deal with it, or simply can't? Here's the twist. Sometimes cases fall into a gray zone, a place where no one steps in immediately. You don't have to be a criminal to find that unsettling. Just imagine being there, with no clear system protecting you. The law exists, but it doesn't always show up. And because of gaps like this, they had to create even stranger rules to control the ocean. Story 10. High-speed escape at sea, and you're not getting away that easily. You think you've made a clean escape. Your ship is out of territorial waters, the Coast Guard fading into the distance like a slow-motion movie scene. You breathe out, okay, game over. But no, this is just level 2. There's a legal concept that sounds straight out of an action film, Hot Pursuit. If authorities spot you breaking the law while you're still in their waters and they start chasing you, right, then they can keep going. All the way into international waters. No reset. This isn't a game. Here's the twist. As long as they don't stop, no lunch break, no turning back, no pause, the pursuit stays legal. You can go farther, faster, but they can keep coming. You thought you escaped. You just unlocked the next stage. You're not getting away that easily. And even when you think you're finally free, the law still has ways to pull you back. Story 11. You left territorial waters, but you're still not free. You check the map. The ship has passed the 12 nautical mile line. Instant thought, okay, international waters, I'm free. Feels like hitting a checkpoint in a game, like the boss can't follow anymore. But in reality, you've only stepped into the front yard. Right outside territorial waters is something called the contiguous zone. Sounds fancy, but it basically means the country can still reach out and enforce certain laws, customs immigration taxes. Here's the twist. If you did something wrong earlier, they can still come after you, even out there. You thought you were out of range. You're still within reach. You ran, just not far enough. And what makes it worse is, sometimes you're not even sure what you did wrong. Story 12. A warship passes right in front of your house, and it's completely legal. Imagine standing on the beach enjoying a peaceful morning, and suddenly a massive warship glides past right in front of you. The vibe shifts from vacation mode to war movie trailer in 5 seconds. First reaction? Wait, is that even legal? Surprisingly, yes. There's a rule called innocent passage. As long as the ship doesn't stop, doesn't threaten, and doesn't do anything suspicious, it can pass through your waters like it's taking a shortcut on Google Maps. Here's the twist. Even if it's a military vessel fully armed looking anything but innocent, legally it's still allowed. So you could be sipping your morning coffee while a warship casually cruises by. They're just passing through. But don't let the word innocent fool you, because there are things out there you definitely shouldn't touch. Story 13. You saved the ship, but it's not yours. You're out at sea when you spot a ship drifting in rough waves. No crew, no signal. Feels like a random side quest just appeared. So you step in, you tow it back, handle everything. Basically become the hero of the moment. In your head, nice, I just unlocked new property. But the law says slow down. Under salvage law, saving a ship from real danger doesn't make you the owner. You're entitled to a reward, sometimes a big one, depending on the value and the risk you took. Here's the twist. You can risk your life, do everything right, and still not own it. You're the hero of the story. Just not the name on the paperwork. Hero, but not the owner. And if you think that's already frustrating, wait until you find a ship no one wants to claim. Story 14. A ghost ship and a lottery ticket in the ocean. You're out at sea when you spot a drifting vessel. No lights, no crew, no signal. Straight out of a horror movie. Your first instinct: turn around fast. But if you're curious or brave enough, you get closer. You check it out and realize it's truly abandoned. And this is where the law gets interesting. A derelict ship completely deserted can turn into something valuable. If you manage to bring it back to port, you can earn a massive reward. In some cases, almost the full value of the ship and its cargo. Here's the twist. You're no longer just a rescuer. You might have just hit the jackpot. In the middle of the ocean. No lottery ticket, no app. Just timing, luck, and courage. A jackpot, floating at sea. But like every story that sounds too good to be true, not everyone gets that lucky. Story 15. You can sue the ship itself. This sounds weird, but in maritime law, a ship can be treated like a legal person. Not in the sense that it has feelings or can apologize, but it can be sued. You don't always have to track down the owner or the company behind it. In some cases, you can file a lawsuit directly against the ship itself. The case literally lists the ship as the defendant, and if the court agrees, they can order the ship to be arrested, held in place like a suspect waiting for trial. Here's the twist. You're now involved in a legal case against a massive piece of metal weighing thousands of tons. No arguments, no defense speech, just the law, and a silent ship sitting there. You just sued a giant chunk of steel, and if you think that's already strange, wait until you see how humans can sometimes be treated even worse. Story 16. Abandoned at sea, and no one's coming to get you. You think life at sea is wind, sun, and freedom. A few photos, instant travel influencer vibe. But sometimes reality feels more like getting ghosted. There are cases where shipping companies go bankrupt or just disappear. Salaries stop, communication vanishes, and they leave behind an entire ship and crew in a foreign port. No money, no ticket home, no plan, just questions. You think, okay, someone will fix this, right? Here's the twist. Not as fast as you'd hope. The laws exist, but the process is slow. Sailors can be stuck for months, sometimes years, living on their own ship with no way home. You didn't do anything wrong, you were just left behind. The ocean isn't always romantic, and somehow, while these very real situations exist, maritime law still finds ways to be incredibly weird. Story 17. Ocean trash comes with its own legal profile. You see something floating in the ocean and think, okay, just trash. Everything drifting out there gets grouped the same way. Trash is trash. Simple, right? Not even close. Maritime law splits it into 3 categories: flotsam, jetsam, and lagan. Sounds like three indie film characters, but they're actually three different legal situations. Flotsam is cargo lost by accident. Jetsam is cargo thrown overboard to save a ship. Lagan is cargo dropped intentionally with a marker to recover later. Same ocean, same trash, completely different legal meaning. Here's the twist: what you do with it. Pick it up, keep it, use. It can be legal or not. You see garbage. The law sees a case study. Even trash has its own rules. And if you think only objects are regulated, wait until you hear about sound. Story 18, Ship Horns. And the international version of What Are You Doing? You're standing on deck. Calm breeze, good mood, everything feels normal. Then suddenly beep. 5 short blasts. Not music, not a buffet announcement. It's key, very specific. In maritime law, that signal means I don't understand your intentions, and this could be dangerous. Sounds polite, but translated into real life, what are you even doing? Here's the twist. No shouting, no arguing. Just the right number of horn blasts, and every ship nearby knows someone just messed up. It's like a controlled call-out. No drama, no caps lock, but enough to make you rethink your life choices. The polite version of TF. And if you think sound is just for communication, wait until you see what silence can do. Story 19. Logging every bag of trash, and the most powerful notebook on the ship. You think being a ship captain means standing on deck holding binoculars saying full speed ahead like a Hollywood movie. CEO of a floating city. Big decisions only. But reality, you're also dealing with very everyday things. Environmental laws require every ship to keep a garbage log. Not just we took out the trash, it's detailed. Type of waste, exact time, where it was handled, how it was disposed. Basically accounting, but for trash. Here's the twist. The person ultimately responsible for that log, the captain. Yes, the one commanding a multi-million-dollar vessel also has to make sure every bag of trash is recorded properly. You can manage the entire ocean ahead, and still have to check who threw what and when. CEO, but still tracking garbage. And if you think trash is a small detail, wait until a small mistake turns into a big problem. Story 21, Anchor. And the whole world starts lagging. You're out at sea dropping anchor like it's just another normal day. No drama, no stress, just a routine move to keep the ship steady. Seems harmless, right? But beneath the surface, there's a system you can't see. Most of the world's internet runs through fiber optic cables on the ocean floor. These lines connect entire continents. And if you drop anchor in the wrong spot, you could accidentally tear part of that system apart. Here's the twist. One small, unintentional action can knock millions of people offline. Emails, banking, even Netflix, all frozen because of one anchor. You didn't hack anything, you didn't attack anyone, you just anchored your ship. One anchor, an entire continent lags. And if you think that's already a massive impact, wait until humans take things even further. Story 21. A deep-sea mining mission, and the real target was far below. You see a massive ship out at sea, packed with advanced equipment. It looks like it's mining the ocean floor. Clean energy, scientific progress, totally legitimate. But in reality, not exactly. During the Cold War, the CIA ran an extremely secret operation. They built a perfect cover story, deep-sea resource extraction, but the real goal? Recover a sunken Soviet submarine, along with things you definitely wouldn't want falling into the wrong hands. Here's the twist. They used maritime law as a shield. On paper, everything looked legal. In reality, it was a full-scale spy mission straight out of a movie. You think they're digging minerals? They're actually digging for classified secrets. A mining project with a war objective. And if you think only movies have plots like this, history is way more creative than you think. Story 22. Turning slave ships into pirates just to make it legal. Picture the 19th century. The ocean is full of ships, and some of them are doing something brutal, the slave trade. The problem under the law at the time, you couldn't just stop and search ships from another nation in international waters. Feels like a premium loophole. So someone looked at it and thought, okay, what if we change the rule? Countries, especially Britain, decided that any ship involved in the slave trade would be treated as a pirate. And once you're labeled a pirate, any nation can chase you down and capture you. Here's the twist. They didn't change the behavior, they changed the definition. And with one word, the law suddenly unlocked new power. No permission needed. No long explanations. You're not stopping a ship. You're capturing pirates. One name change and the entire game changes. Because sometimes law isn't just rules, it's strategy. Story 23. The International Dateline and Humanity Bending Time. You think time is fixed. A day is a day. Monday is Monday. Simple. Until you look at a map in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. There's something called the International Dateline. Cross it, and you jump forward a day, or go back to yesterday. Sounds like a cheat code. But here's the twist. The line isn't straight, it zigzags, bends around countries, avoids splitting nations in half like it's playing Don't Touch Anyone. Some islands are literally moved on the map of time, just so the whole country shares the same day, which means time here isn't purely natural. It's drawn by humans. You can stand a few kilometers apart and be living in different days. Time is real, but how we divide it isn't. And if you think that's already bending reality, humans have tried to bend the ocean too. Story 24. You can't just dump sand and expand your country. You look out at the ocean and think, if I pour enough sand and build an island, that becomes mine, right? Sounds like an ambitious real estate project. And honestly, the logic feels solid. But the law says, not that fast. Under international maritime law, artificial islands are not considered natural territory, which means you can't use them to expand your waters or sovereignty. You can build them, you can use them, but you can't claim more ocean because of them. Here's the twist. You can create an entirely new island and still not move your borders an inch. You build more, but you don't actually own more. Just because you build it doesn't mean it counts. And if you think the law always works exactly as written, real life out there is a lot more complicated. Story 25. You can't disappear at sea anymore. Back then, going out to sea meant going fully offline. No signal, no tracking, no one knew where you were. If you wanted to disappear, the ocean was perfect. But now, not anymore. Most large ships are required to use AIS automatic identification system. In simple terms, every ship is constantly broadcasting its position, direction, and speed, basically a public GPS for the whole world to see. Here's the twist. Anyone with the right app or website can track you in real time. No military radar, no special gear. You think you're alone in the middle of the ocean, but you're actually live streaming your location 24/7. You're not being secretly tracked, you're broadcasting yourself. Disappearing, not an option anymore. And if you think technology controls everything, there are still things it can't keep up with. Story 26. Self-driving ships, and the question, who's responsible? You imagine the future ships with no captain, no crew, everything run by AI, no fatigue, no mistakes, no drama. Sounds like the perfect upgrade. Then, an accident happens. Two ships collide in the middle of the ocean. No one is physically steering. No one is there to take the blame. And the question hits immediately, who's responsible? The AI, the programmer, the company that owns the ship, or the remote operator? Who was grabbing coffee at the time? Here's the twist. The law hasn't caught up with the technology. There are situations where the legal system is still figuring it out. You can't punish a piece of code, but you also can't ignore the damage. The future is here, but the law is still loading. And if you think technology can solve everything, nature still has its own way of causing problems. Story 27. Ballast water and the army you didn't invite. You think water in a ship is just water. Pump it in for stability. Release it when needed. Simple, technical, harmless. But in reality, you're transporting an entire mini ecosystem. When a ship takes in ballast water at one port, it's not just water. It's millions of microorganisms. Fish eggs, tiny species you can't even see. And when that water is released somewhere else, you've just introduced them into a completely new environment. Here's the twist. Some of those species become invasive. They spread, disrupt local ecosystems, cause damage that lasts for years. You didn't smuggle anything. You didn't mean to, but you just moved life across borders. Modern laws now require ships to treat or exchange ballast water at sea to prevent exactly this. One tank of water can change an entire ocean, and if you think that's already a massive impact, some disasters have forced the whole world to rewrite the rules. Story 28. Double-hull oil tankers, and a very expensive lesson. You look at an oil tanker and think, okay, just a giant floating container. Simple. Until you remember it's carrying millions of liters of oil, and one collision can go very wrong. This isn't theory. It already happened. A massive oil spill once turned hundreds of kilometers of coastline into an environmental disaster. Cleanup took years. Wildlife didn't stand a chance. After that, new laws required tankers to have double hulls, an outer layer to absorb impact, an inner layer to keep the oil contained. Here's the twist. The solution sounds obvious, but it only came after everything went wrong. You don't need to be an expert to think, shouldn't this have existed from the start? We don't fix things before they break, we fix them after they break. And if you think humans always stay in control, sometimes they have to hand it over to something else. Story 29. The Captain, who has to give up control to a stranger. You think the captain has absolute authority. Final boss, no one argues. Makes sense? Until the ship approaches port. That's when a stranger steps on board the harbor pilot. And by law, the captain must hand over control. Not a suggestion. Not optional. Required. Sounds strange. You've spent years mastering the ocean, handling storms, crossing continents, and now near shore, you step aside. Here's the twist: that stranger knows the area better than anyone. Every current, every turn, every hidden danger under the water. Things you can't possibly know from the open sea. You're the captain of the ocean, but here you're the passenger. Sometimes the best has to step aside for the one who knows. And if you think maritime law is only about control, some rules put human life above everything else. Story 30. You can enter a port, even if you weren't invited. You're out at sea and something goes wrong. Engine failure, bad weather, things start getting serious. You spot land in the distance and think, I hope they let me in. But here's the interesting part. You don't need permission the way you think. Maritime law has a concept called distress. If your ship is in real danger, you have the right to enter the nearest port for help, even if you normally wouldn't be allowed. Here's the twist. In that moment, human safety comes before administrative rules. Safety always wins. No visa, no appointment, just what? A real emergency. Of course you can't fake it. If you do, the consequences won't be pleasant. The law can be strict, but it still leaves room for humanity. And if you think that's the final limit of maritime law, there's still one more thing. Story 31. You are legally required to rescue, whether you want to or not. You're out at sea on a normal journey. No drama, no problems. Then you receive a distress signal. Another ship in trouble or someone adrift in the ocean. Your first thought might be, should I get involved? But the law doesn't ask for your opinion. Under international maritime law, if you are capable of helping without putting yourself in serious danger, you are obliged to rescue. Not optional. Mandatory. Here's the twist. You might be busy, have your own plans, or simply don't want to get involved. But you still have to turn back. You're not part of the Coast Guard. Yet in that moment, you are the closest person who can help. At sea, humanity isn't optional. It's the law. And perhaps the most fascinating part, among all the weird, complex, even illogical rules, there is one simple law: save lives. You thought the ocean was freedom. So what now? After everything you just heard, the sea doesn't feel so chill anymore. It feels more like a legal maze on hard mode. Some laws are weird, some are dangerous, and some just make you stop and ask, who came up with this? But through all of it, there's one rule that actually makes sense: save lives. Now it's your turn. Which law felt the most insane to you? Drop it in the comments. I really want to see your most questionable pick. And if you enjoy stories that make you laugh and feel slightly uncomfortable at the same time, hit like and subscribe. Because trust me, there's still a lot out there that hasn't been told yet.